Brandon Hutchenson, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing great, Carl. How are you?
So we met. What to answer your question? I'm looking forward to this. So we met in Phoenix, and you reminded me we've seen each other a couple more times or something at some event somewhere, probably
Over the years, right?
over the years. Yeah. And how long you been doing this, man?
24 years.
24 years. Wow, good for you.
I tell people I got in when I was 8, so
I was
that
going to
might
say
be
you you hold your age well. I'm just saying that.
I'll pay you for that later.
Well, that's and where do you live?
I live in Franklin, Tennessee, so just outside of Nashville.
What a great place, man.
Oh, it's beautiful. I think I was telling you before when we met, it's like Main Street, USA. It's just like the quintessential little small town, the oldest town in Tennessee. It's a really great place to live. But we're right in a very wealthy area. It's like the eighth wealthiest county in the nation. So there's just a lot of money here, country music stars, professional athletes, a lot of things like that. So it's a really, really wealthy area. It's just a cool, very safe, good area.
Did not know that.
Yeah.
So it's would you say the fifth
I think
wealthiest?
the eighth wealthiest last year. County in the nation. And so it's a tremendous amount of money. So
Really?
Nashville's a big, obviously it's Music City, but then it's also a big healthcare hub. And so you've got like all these healthcare billionaires, and everything, and they're here. But then we have a lot of like professional athletes, movie stars, things like that as well move to this area. It's just there's no state income tax. Our property taxes are really low. So it's just a real, and like I say, it's a safe place to live. Great public school system. So it's just shameless plug for Franklin, I guess, or for Williamson County where I'm at. But yeah, it's a really good place to live.
Wow. Very interesting. I have to go check that out, man. That's interesting. So I live here in the Tampa Bay area, but we got a little place up in High Point, North Carolina. But see, they got a state tax there because we're thinking, well, do we move there? So anyway. Hey, so what I wanted to talk about here is so our mutual friend Jimmy hooked us up together. And he said, "Hey, if you want to hear a good story about overcoming adversity, you need to talk to my main man, Brandon." So I have no idea what this is about. I don't know what your adversity is, but I love good stories of overcoming the odds. My favorite story is like small town boy, small town girl makes good, kind of stuff. Because frankly, it reflects me on my journey, growing up very, very, very lower middle class, not middle, lower class, very, very, poor, grew up poor, and things have turned out pretty good. And I love hearing people that, hey, things were stacked against them either in the beginning or something happened somewhere in point in time. And so what's he talking about, man? What's this? Is it okay for me to open with it? Oh,
Oh yeah,
hey,
for
hey,
sure.
before we do that, so a little bit of homework. Tell me about are you a branch manager? Are you a loan officer? Do you own a company? Like, give me a little bit of the lay of the land of that.
Yes, I'm a producing branch manager for Summit Funding.
Okay,
So I have just a small branch for them, and so I did about 86 units last year.
good for you,
So for
man.
about 30 million. So yeah, that's kind of a little bit about us. And I've been with Summit for a couple years now, and I've known
Okay,
I've known Todd, Jimmy, all those guys from core days back dating back 2009.
yeah, good for you, man. They're good, solid people. I love Jimmy and Todd. Todd. Boy, they don't come in. He's just the nicest guy you'd ever want to meet. So I
Absolutely.
really had instant connection when I met that guy. He came to an event we had up in Lake Tahoe. It was, and his brother was a member of the Freedom Club here. And so called me up and said, "Hey, is it okay if my brother comes?" Which was Todd, and I said, "Sure, dude, of course." And gosh, just a really good guy. So tell me about your challenge, man. What's he talking about?
Yeah, so I mean, before we even get to the challenge, I mean, I guess we probably are kindred spirits a little bit there. So I grew up in rural East Tennessee, same thing, very kind of lower class family. Didn't really have money. I was the kid in high school. I worked before school and after school because we didn't have the money, and I wanted to be able to wear the clothes and buy new tennis shoes and do all the things like that. In the little town I grew up in, it was like, okay, you either go to work at one of the two factories or you're a farmer. That's basically it.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew I
What
wanted
what
to get
what
out of
what
that
little
environment.
what little town?
Greenville, Tennessee. So it's
I
got
know
a
where
little
that is.
extra E in the middle there. So it's right on the
Yeah,
North Carolina Tennessee line.
yeah, I know
Um,
exactly where that is.
so
So
yeah, so it's an interesting life. I did not go to college. I went to like two semesters, excuse me, of community college. But I had to work, so I had to hustle, had to do that, and so I just had a really strong work ethic from super early, and I happened into the mortgage industry. It was just kind of really random how it worked out. I was actually working for a company and they went out of business. And my dad said, "You should go talk to these guys. They have a mortgage company." And I was like, "What's that?" So I went and
Yeah.
talked to them. They were a mortgage brokerage, and it was very interesting. Back in those days, it was like, "Hey, are you afraid of being commission only, making cold calls?" I'm like, "No." They're like, "All right, you're hired." There's no, training, no licensing, nothing like that.
Yeah.
So it was interesting. So I got in the mortgage business in East Tennessee. I was up there for a couple of years, and then there was an opportunity to move to Nashville. A company offered me a job, and so I was like, a young guy in his early 20s. I'd rather be in Nashville than in rural East Tennessee. So I moved down to Nashville. I knew one person here. So I picked up the Yellow Pages and just started going into real estate offices and just meeting people that way. So now here I am 20 some years later in Nashville and very plugged into the community.
So I just did the math real quick. It looks like you're averaging like 7 loans a month, something like that, which is a great number. It's got to put you in the top. I don't know the exact number, but just off the top of my head, I'd probably say the top 2%.
Hmm.
Something like that, which is, dude, which is awesome. That's a great number. How do you get most of your loans in? Like, is it past database, referral partners? Are you buying Zillow leads? Are you a TikTok star? Like, where do they come
No,
from?
no, I don't think I have a face for TikTok, unfortunately. And we don't buy any leads. I do, I've got a big past client database. I know Todd gets on me all the time because I'm disappointed with my numbers, and I don't want to diminish anybody's numbers, but worst year we've had in, I don't know, 14 or 15 years. And again, I'll get into the distractions here in a minute and all the issues and things like that I've been working through. But no, really, it's real estate agents and database. I mean, that's it. The two trustworthy sources for mortgage
Mhm.
people, right?
Yeah, and I would say like my database came from real estate agents, really. I mean, it was
Yeah, no, that was honestly. I went to a old Stephen Marshall event like years ago, like early in the industry. I've been in like 3 years, and somebody was talking about database marketing, and I was like, "Huh, I should have been saving all these people's information of these loans I closed, right?" Because we didn't have CRMs, we didn't have whatever. So I just started like an Excel spreadsheet right after that event. It was one of his big events in Vegas that he would do every year.
yeah.
So yeah, that's how I started my database. But I missed 3 or 4 years of closed clients when I did that. But since then, I've tried to be really diligent about, hey, everybody can go in the database.
Yeah. Are most of your loans right there in the Franklin, Tennessee, or are they outside of what I'll call a drivable area, or how does that work?
Yeah, so they're in the drivable area, usually. So a lot of the people here, like I said, it's a very wealthy area. So a lot of the people are either paying cash or they're getting these, crazy loans against their investment accounts for 2%. And,
Yeah.
they don't want to get the mortgages where they are now. We were doing more of the bigger loans when the rates were a little lower, but now a lot of the kind of surrounding area. So Nashville has been a really fast growing area for the last few years. It's just kind of been a good, like, it city. And so we've had a large influx of people, from California, Illinois, New York, that sort of thing coming here. And so Nashville Metro is just spreading outward.
Yeah. And how like for most of the agents, I know a little off topic, but I'm interested in this. Like on your agents that you get their referrals, how did you get introduced, or how do you meet them, or how did it start? Like where most of these agents, how'd you start the relationship?
Yeah, so like I said, early when I first moved to Nashville, it was literally yellow pages, like the old school ones, that you get in the mail. And I would walk into real estate offices, and I was the rate sheet and donuts or whatever it was back then. So I would do that stuff back then.
Did that work?
It's you're there at the right time and it works
Yeah.
sometimes. It's not like it works just because of that, but I think a lot of the times with real estate agents, and that's why marketing is so important, right? Especially like database marketing, and I include realtors in our database, is
Yeah.
because they need to see you and they need to hear from you. And if they don't, if you're not top of mind, somebody's going to be standing in their office with with something. It may not be a rate sheet these days, but they'll be standing there and they're like, "Oh yeah, I just got a client called me." So it's like just being the right place, and it's almost, you want to be omnipresent, right? But it's super hard to do, and that's what marketing does for us. And so that's
Yeah.
really a lot of what we do. I also teach real estate CE classes. I'm licensed with the Tennessee Real Estate Commission. So that's been a good source of meeting agents, kind of top of the sales funnel, just to get people, and obviously builds authority when you teach them as a captive audience for a couple hours.
So when you say, I've heard you mention it several times now, hey, my marketing this, my marketing that, like tell me what that means.
Yeah, so we do a couple of different things. You remember the old by referral only? We do the ugly yellow
Sure.
postcard. I've done those for, gosh, 15 or 20 years. Every single month, we'll send out the postcards to all of our past clients, and we usually include our top couple hundred realtors in there as well. In addition to that, I mean, we do email marketing. We do some text marketing. We do birthday cards, Christmas cards. We, do client appreciation events. So we try to hit it from different things. We use different services for like home values, things like that. So just trying to stay top of mind. And that's really what we've learned. For me, it was hard to do that. It didn't feel natural. And I always worried that people would judge me or be like, leave me the heck alone. But it's like that's really what you have to do these days. You know what I mean? It's like you have to be there and you have to be present. So they have to be opening an email from you saying what your home value is, or they have to be getting a card in the mail from you, or they have to be having I've done the refrigerator magnets for I don't even know how long with like the football schedules on them. So, just all the things like that. And it's like we'll do one thing and then we'll incorporate it for a few months and then, okay, now it's in our system and now let's add something else. And so it's just,
Mhm.
you progressively just get more and more as the years go on.
I had an epiphany. I was talking with a real estate agent buddy of mine that was a buddy of mine before I got in the mortgage industry, and so we were working together. But we could, he was like a real buddy, and so we'd talk all the time. And anyway, I'd say he was a top producer. And I'd say, he'd say something like, "Well, why don't you call some of the agents my was my first got started. Why don't you call some of the agents my office, Carl?" And I go, "Well, I don't want to bug them." He says, "Dude, let me give you some breaking news. How do you think all those agents got to be top producers?" I don't know how. By calling people, not worrying about that lie that goes in our head. Well, I don't want to bug them. I don't want to bother them. I don't want to this. See, that none of that's real. And so that's where I got that thought from him. And so it's like, all right, that there is no such thing as bugging them because you're doing the exact activity they did to get big. And what he taught me early in the game is they recognize top producer activity. When you're doing it, they not all of them, but a good portion of them embrace that because that's exactly what they're doing. So
No,
anyway,
absolutely. I use that same sort of thing. Like I said, I don't use like my real estate education classes as, as like I'm trying to attract them, but a lot of people come to me after that just because they see the value. And so a lot of times I think we as salespeople get in our way, right? Because we're worried or we're nervous or whatever. But it's like if you're presenting value to them, people are going to see that value and they're not going to think you're bugging them.
I like that. Hey, so first of all, when you said, "Hey, I closed 86 loans," comes to 7.1 a month, I'm thinking, man, good for you, buddy, awesome. And then you said, "Dude, I think that's my lowest number in 15 years." Like, so first of all, it's my nature to say congratulations on the 86 loans, because if you multiply that times, I don't know, we just use an average number of $3,000 per closing, $4,000 per closing, like that. If I do that number, that's a pretty freaking awesome number. But I can just in the in watching your face, you and I are on a Zoom meeting right now. Just watching your face, you seemed a little disappointed. So what happened? Like what?
Yeah, so I like to tell people I've been through like three very traumatic like financial events in my life. The first one was 2008 meltdown, of course, everybody in the mortgage
Oh,
industry, or catastrophic, I guess, financial events. The second
yeah.
one was I got divorced in late 2018, early 2019. That's a big catastrophic event. And then the last one was kind of over the last 12 to 18 months here, and I'll get into that a little bit. So after I got divorced, I was a really good producer for a long time. Like I said, I was in the core. I always believed in coaching, did those things. I've always had like teams since 2008. So I always was able to do pretty good numbers and be able to make a good living. After I got divorced, though, I was like I was in my late 30s, and I was like, man, I feel broke again. You know what I mean, like
Mm.
financially. And I kind of been at the place before where I thought maybe you feel like you've made it, which you never have. But I felt broke again after the divorce and I, started like investing really heavily. I went into real estate just because we know real estate. And so I actually built a real estate company. So we were building houses, we were flipping houses, we had rentals, we had long-term rentals, short-term rentals, mid-term rentals. We were doing a lot of stuff. It was crazy. I mean, we got up to, 25, 30 rental properties. And like I built this in just a couple of year period really fast. In addition to I had my mortgage team, I had 10, 11 people on my mortgage team. We were doing a lot of loans. Then obviously the COVID years happened. Mortgage Disneyland, as Todd likes to call it. So it wasn't really realistic. In about early 2022, my father passed away. And
Mm.
so I'm at this place in life, right? Like say growing up in a very small rural area, I'm in a weird place in life because it's kind of like I've accomplished 20 times more. Done things, traveled, done all the things I never imagined I would have done. Um, And I was fortunate enough because of this industry and because what it's provided me that I was able to spend the last 3 weeks of his life with him,
Mm.
which was great. I mean, it's one of the hardest things you'll ever do, right? But it's really good because you get those memories and you have those conversations, and you don't leave anything unsaid, that sort of thing. So it was really great. But after that, I guess I didn't realize a lot how he was sort of this like touchstone or like guiding light in my life, as far as like he was always the one that I would talk to. He wouldn't necessarily give me advice, but he always asked me questions and listen and do all that. And so I started drifting really hard. And so like drifting is a very dangerous place to be. Jimmy talks about it. Other coaches talk about it. Like it's just it's a not a good place, especially for a commission only salesperson to be. And so I started traveling. I think I went to Europe like 10 times the next year after after my dad died. I was
Wow.
just like leaving. I was whatever. I had two businesses that were running. Things were, life was good. Life was easy. Then, you fast forward a little bit when you take your eye off the ball and you stop doing the things that make you successful. Because I'm drifting, I'm not leading my team well. I'm not leading my real estate company well. I'm not paying attention to things. It's really easy for bad things to happen. And especially, when people get desperate and you get people, not good people. So, most people don't even believe all of the things in the story, and I won't even tell all of it just because we don't have that much time. But within like a year to year and a half period, I went through got caught in a Ponzi scheme from a
Mm.
person in the industry. A lot of money. I mean, high in the six figures, lost in that. Had several other like thefts, had a development deal that a guy ran off with some money. Then finally, it all culminated earlier this year when my CPA, bookkeeper, and payroll person for my real estate company was indicted by the IRS on money laundering, tax fraud, wire fraud. He'd been, stealing money from me for over 5 years and also filing fraudulent tax returns and dealing with that. So that actually happened on our Leaders Club trip. I was in Mexico this last spring, and I found out because the information came out, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" I mean, I probably said something worse than that, but I don't want to share what my thoughts were.
Yeah.
I flew back early because I was like, "This is bad." Obviously the mortgage industry is going down. I'd already had like last year was not a great year. I mean, it was a little bit better than what this year ended up being, but dealing with that. So I came back home and just started kind of digging into it, and I had completely taken my eye off the ball, like financially, as far as he would send me P&Ls every month. He would like, send me things, but I wasn't verifying. I was just looking at them.
Mm.
So I went from a place of sometime late last year, my financial advisor tells me based on information from my CPA and bookkeeper and payroll person that, hey, you can retire if you want. And I'm like, what? That doesn't even make any sense. To, now here we are less than a year later or whatever. And it's like, man, it's totally the opposite because there was so much happening, like going on behind the scenes. Like I said, there was high six figures of money that was taken. The scam that he was doing, he had several scams and ways he was doing it. So I would say this as a warning to people when you have people watching your money, is there's a lot of ways they can do it. So the first one was you have matching payroll tax, you have unemployment tax, things like that. And so you would see those amounts come out for the employees, but they weren't being sent to the IRS. They were being pocketed by the CPA. So you have all these things. So you as the taxpayer still owe that money, even though it came out of your account. It didn't make it to the IRS. You still owe that money. So that was the first place that he was doing it. Then there was several other ways he was doing it as well. So with people like me, who he had control of the books and he had check writing authority, which by the way, don't ever give anybody check writing authority. Todd's really beat that one into me since these last 9 months or whatever.
Yeah.
It's easy for them to move money around. It's easy for them to do things, and like I say, money gets away from you really really quickly. So we had that, and then the one of the biggest ways he was doing it was he was preparing tax returns. He'd give it to you, the taxpayer, and it would say, okay, you owe whatever. You owe $100,000 this year, Carl. You had a great year, right? Whatever. So he's like, I'm going to pull the $100,000 out of your account. He would then turn around and do a fraudulent tax return to file with the IRS, not the one he gave you, that said you owed $10,000 with a bunch of fraudulent write-offs that weren't really there. And then he would send $10,000 to the IRS and keep the 90. So I currently have three open audits with the IRS for 2020, 2021, 2022, which happened to obviously be the biggest years ever in the mortgage industry and in my real estate business. Right. And so there's, I don't even want to tell you how embarrassing that number is, but that I have with the IRS right now as far as that. Then I have other issues on 23 and 24 technically haven't even been filed yet. So yeah, so we've got some things going on there. So have had a lot of meetings with tax attorneys, had a lot of meetings, with CPAs. I mean, I literally in the last 2 months, I mean, I've met with the U.S. Attorney, the Department of Justice, the IRS Criminal Division. I've talked to the FTC. Because again, there's been several things, issues of fraud that have gone that the government is prosecuting that I've been a victim of. There was also two personal things in there with theft. Somebody robbed my safe at my house. That's nice. So it had to be someone in my inner circle who knew it was there and knew what that was, right? Stole jewelry, cash, a lot of things. So just a lot of things from taking my eye off the ball. And it's created kind of a ripple effect. Really, like with my mortgage industry, it created so much like anxiety and issues. Like I probably missed 3 or 4 months of work this last year. And so I've lost in the last 12 months. I mean, I've lost, I guess, three teammates that quit or resigned, right? Probably because I wasn't present. I had one that I had to fire and one that we had to lay off. So again, it's like, seeing a real huge contraction of team members. Also, your volume goes down when you have a lot less team members than you had before, right?
Sure.
But obviously, I was dealing with a lot of other things. I was dealing with criminal things. I was dealing with things that, in the millions of dollars. And like I say, it's been very, very traumatic just kind of going through all that and just trying to figure out like how to pick up the pieces. Thankfully, the one good thing is I did invest a lot in real estate, and so I had a lot of real estate, and so I've been liquidating like systematically for the last year. It's not been a great time to liquidate, especially rental properties, especially
Yeah.
short-term rentals, things like that. But we've been liquidating just to basically keep the wheels on. Another issue that we found too through that is once I finally got a hold of the books, is that he was sending us fake P&Ls because he was doing so many things to hide money. So we had some properties that were just absolute losers on some bad deals we did, too late, missed timing on the market, things like that, that we're trying to get out of and trying to unload. So it's just been one distraction after another. And then early December, I find that a short-term property manager has shorted us $40,000 over the last 12 months. And I find, so it's always like all these things, these unintended consequences when you start really digging in like with a fine-tooth comb, like you would never go through your finances, but you have to after you've been violated that badly. Which again all serve as constant distraction from what allowed me to do this in the first place. What allowed me to do this in the first place is I had a great mortgage business for years. I was making lots and lots of money, high six figures, low seven figures. Like I was making a lot of money in the mortgage business because I had a big mortgage team, because I ran a consistent mortgage business. And then when you start, like I say, the drifting, everything happens and you take your eye off the ball, it's things really will spiral and go downhill very quickly. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the high level abridged version of kind of what's happened to me in the last 12 to 24 months. Like I said, there's a lot more I could get into. Most people don't even believe all the details when I tell them. But I'm like, yeah, it's been very interesting. Ask my therapist; he would tell you it's been very very, very traumatic and a lot to deal with.
So it sounds like and just listening to this is like, holy cow, I had no idea um the direction of this, right? So
Mhm.
I thought maybe you broke your leg or something.
Oh, I did that too. Just under 2 years ago on a ski trip as well. Have a plate and seven screws. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that too. But yeah, but yeah, that would have been easy. That was easy.
Yeah. So gosh, how do you show up for work when you dude, I can feel the weight on your chest from here.
Mhm.
How do you and in this case, I don't know if you directly quote, did anything, I'm using air quotes here, wrong, other than trusting people. You got a lot going on. You've got a lot of irons in the pot, nothing wrong with that. You got a lot of irons in the pot and you go, well, I wasn't watching the store. Well, you had a big store.
Hey there. Hey, if you're loving the tips so far, be sure to hit that subscribe button right down there and then tap the little bell so that you never miss out on more free, cool tips coming your way. Also, I would love to hear from you. Drop a comment beneath there. Let me know what you think or tell me what you'd like to hear next.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that had access to the store, as big stores do. So, I mean, the bigger your ball game is, the more players you got in it. I mean, that's just the way it works. And so I don't know if, quote, you did anything wrong per se.
There were some things that I look back on, and to be honest with you, like I'm fully transparent and I'm like brutally honest is what you'll kind of figure out about me. Is you can probably tell already because I'm willing to share this sort of thing. But I've talked at length with like friends, with like therapists about this. Like there was a lot of self blame and a lot of like things that like I was holding myself accountable for. And like I said, there was a while, especially last spring, early summer, when I just didn't show up for my team, and that's why I lost some team members because
Mhm.
I was like physically and emotionally not able to, right? I was having so much like stress and anxiety, man. I had like neck issues, I had both shoulders, I had tennis elbow, I had a forearm issue, I had like I think it was all stress related. I was going to physical therapy, the chiropractor, and a massage like every single week, and I still couldn't even like move my neck, right? It was all just from stress and like tension and anxiety because I was like freaking out. And so I had to release some of that and had to like let some of myself off the hook some. But the things that I can say that I would give advice to people as far as yes, I mean you have to keep an eye on the store. Gary Keller's book, The One Thing, right? You have to keep the one thing, and the one thing always had been the mortgage industry. No matter what I did, you know, when I was married, whatever, I always still kept my eye on the mortgage industry. I still did my daily team meetings. I still made sure that I was doing my videos. I still made sure I was calling my realtors. I still made sure I was doing the fundamentals. And after really after my dad passed, and I, you know, again, I wasn't dealing with that directly either. I was trying to escape. I quit doing those things. And so, yes, I couldn't have controlled the fact that my CPA had these issues. I think there was some addiction issues and some things like that. And he'd been a friend for 8 years. You know, he's a past client. I mean, his parents are past clients. His sister's a past client. Like, I
Mhm.
mean, it's one of those things that, you know, I couldn't have seen that. So I can't blame myself for that. But I can blame myself for not keeping my eye on the one thing because what allowed me to build this other business like at an otherworldly pace was I had this hugely successful mortgage business for a long time because I was driving the bus. And so, I mean, that was really like the big lesson was like, okay, you just got to keep the one thing, even if everything else goes away, you know, just make your realtor calls, do your Tuesday updates, like do something. I just let it all go. I just threw my hands up in the air or put my head in the, you know, sand and just kind of let it all go. So that was really, you know, I did that wrong. I chased money a few times in some bad real estate deals, and that's why I got burned a couple times
Mhm.
because you get desperate, you know, especially we get used to a lifestyle. Mortgage people are terrible about that. Real estate people, right? We get used to a lifestyle. We have one good month. And we're like, oh, that's what I make every month for the next 20 years, right? And it's like,
Right. Mhm.
I didn't do that, but I saw contraction, right, in the mortgage market. I saw contraction in the real estate market. And now I'm like, okay, I was dealing in, you know, very large numbers in some cases, especially on some like development deals and things like this. And so I was chasing money and I'd never done that before. And I think it was trying like a pride or ego thing. Well, I want to still, you know, present this idea of success, even though I'm not doing the things I need to do to be successful.
Mhm. You know, one thing I've learned, my man, I've learned other people don't think about me near as much as I think they do. They're too worried about what I think of them.
Mm-hmm.
And not that I'm some I, like with anybody,
No,
you know.
100%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And yeah, because I relate to parts of your story that I'd find myself like, well, what if everybody sees? And what if, you know, I'm down this month or I'm down this quarter, I'm down this year? What's everybody going to say? And I learned nobody really cares. And not
Mm-hmm.
that they don't care about me, but
Yeah.
they don't care, you know, like well, Carl went from 12 million of income for the year down to 8. Oh my God, everybody's going to that's just you know, whatever the number. Because even at your I'm looking at your 7 loans, like if we just use the numbers of say I don't know whatever you know and not, we don't talk about basis points or anything here on the
Sure.
podcast, but if we just say you make $4,000 per closing, I mean that's you know $29,000 a month, you know,
Mm-hmm.
so it's still like really really good money. So how'd you get through this, man? Are you still going through it? It sounds like so.
Yeah. I
How
mean,
do you stay focused enough
there'll
to
be
do
a
the
while.
7 to begin with? I mean, I don't know, man. I'm hearing all that and I'm thinking, holy cow, I'm looking for a hole to dig myself into or a bottle to pick up or something, you know. Like how'd you keep your how'd you stay focused enough to do what you're doing and like how do you keep your sanity?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it was, you know, there was some times when I was not really sure. I didn't want to go. I'm not that I have any problem with people doing. I didn't want to go like I don't want to go on medication. I don't want to self-soothe. I
Yeah.
don't want to go down the drugs or alcohol or something like
Yeah.
that route. And so I got really into exercise. It was kind of my only escape.
Mhm.
So I
Yeah, 'cause
did.
you look great, man. I'm just saying,
I appreciate it.
so some people, about 5% of our crowd will watch this on YouTube, and about 95% will just be listening. But you're talking about your physical condition.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm sitting there looking at you. You chiseled. I mean, you look just
Yeah, I
absolutely
mean, I'm in the best
amazing.
shape of my life because I was literally going until that's what I told my therapist when I was like, I'd go to the gym and I'll work out, a couple hours. I may not get off work till 8 or 9, but I'll go to the gym and I'll work out until I'm basically ready to pass out. And so it was my only way of keeping my sanity, I think, through a lot of things. And honestly, like I say, the first half of the year, especially that second quarter, I wasn't here, I wasn't present, and that's really when I was like, I got to get my head straight, and that helped me a lot. Just focusing on something else. I set a couple of goals with a couple of like endurance type events. And so, did like a mountain climbing event in Utah for 36 hours and some things like that. And did another one. And so it's like having goals or something to work towards where you're not just thinking about the crap you're going through at the time. That helps a lot. And then really like I have a couple of really good friends that have just been there like through thick and thin. And then I have like my team captain, man, she's been with me for 10 years, jokingly call her my work wife. And then I've got my best friend's wife is my assistant. She was on the real estate company, but now we've closed that down. So now she's still working for me personally. But it's like they have been there, like helping me keep the wheels on, the wheels on the bus, which has not always been easy. And so it's sometimes like herding like 30 or 40 cats because there's so many different things, when the FBI is calling you and saying the U.S. attorney's calling you, you've got a meeting. You can't be like, well, I've got to stay here and do my loans. I got to make my calls, right? You got to go during business hours when they say you got to be there. When you've got a commercial development deal and you've got to meet with a small community bank and you've got to meet with the bank president, which I've met with about 6 of them in the last 5 months, trying to get things negotiated, you have to go when they say to go. And so it's like those things will distract you. And so I think just figuring out like ways that to create leverage, especially as our team became smaller. So, I do a lot of like calling in the car. Like I'll have somebody from the office just text me people. I can just click on the number and call, right? Like put it in a text message. That way I don't have to be fumbling around looking for numbers to call. And I'm like, hey, whatever, 5 to 10 minutes that I'm in the car, I want one call for each like 5 minutes. So that way I'll just get a text and I'll just be literally put it on there, just hit the button and just, call people. So I still call people, still talk to people, still do the CE classes. So it's a good way to be present, still, make sure our marketing is happening. I'm not doing nearly as much as I want to. And I mean, again, I'm not doing nearly the results I want to, but given the circumstances, I do feel like we've done pretty good, especially the second half of the year. I mean, we did a lot better than we did the first half. So, I'm proud of that. And I'm proud of, like I said, that I didn't go down some dark rabbit holes with regards to self-soothing and other treatments like that. And I at least went to a healthier escape.
Yeah, because that would have been very easy to do. And obviously, everybody knows that certainly doesn't make it better. You
It does
know,
not. It does
no,
not.
no.
Only hurts you in the long run.
Yeah, yeah. Don't ask me how I know that. So, yeah,
100%.
yeah. So wow. So, is most of that behind you now? Like, has the page turned on most of that?
We're still liquidating. I mean, I've got 6 properties under contract right now. I mean, so we're still liquidating. We're trying to, fix some things. I've paid off a tremendous amount of debt that I didn't even know I had, this year, which is, painful. And again, we've had to fire sale a lot of things just because the timing of the market, which has not been
Sure.
good. No, the IRS will be several years probably before it's settled. Um, it's just, there's so much to unwind. And also when you look at the person, it was kind of the trifecta, right? He controlled the books, but he also had all the records. He had all the originals. So like he had everything. And so like all that's gone. So like you go back to 2020 and I was building houses and doing development deals. I was mainly utilizing small community banks. And so they don't even have records that go back that far. But he
Mm,
had all the bank records. And so it's like I'll have to, like I've got 2 banks in Kentucky I use. I've got a bank in Florida I use, a bank in Alabama. It's like I'll have to drive to these banks and then go to their archives records to try to get records, to try to recreate documents for these audits from 5 years ago. So it's like there's so many. I mean, I've got stacks on my counter at home for each of my audit years that we're working on, that are just trying to build up and just trying to get as much. So we'll just try to check something off the list and try to get there. So it's going to be a long process. Yeah, at this point though, I think that, I've kind of dealt a lot more with like the grief of losing my dad, the things I try to run away from.
mhm.
Um, and I've come to the realization, like I always, thought, like, my dad never made much money. I made more money in my first 3 months in mortgage than he ever made in a year in his life, right? Like, when I got into the business, I thought $100,000 was all the money in the world in a year, right? And it's
Mhm.
like, and then you start doing that, monthly or every couple of weeks or whatever it is, and it's like it doesn't become real. But I didn't really realize like how successful my dad was, like as a person, right? And as with
Mhm.
relationships. And so I took a lot of that stuff for granted. And so I think that it's really kind of taught me. I think I had a lot of my identity in, okay, hey, I've got this real estate portfolio and I've made all this money and I've got all this money in the bank and I've done all these things. And I think that I gained some thing, whatever pride, ego, whatever it was to kind of help me survive. But now I've definitely realized that like I don't care about any of that stuff. Like
Mhm.
I mean, I may have to sell everything, like legitimately, like everything, like, I, every single thing I own to take care of all the things. And I'm okay with that because one, I know that I can rebuild if I want to, but two, I know that it doesn't bring happiness. And it's like, you've
Mhm.
got to, the relationships bring, relationships with people, just having a good community around you. That's what really brings happiness and fulfillment. And so I think
Mhm.
it's really easy in our industry because the people who get their name in lights, the people who get recognized at all of the events are the people that, the biggest producers and make the most money. And so we're like, ooh, I want to be that person, right? I want that pat on the back and I want that attention. But you realize even when you get it a lot, you just want more of it. It doesn't
Mhm.
actually fix anything, right? And so it's like until you look and see what the cause of that is. So really, I think that's been probably the biggest benefit for me is just seeing that like that was never going to lead to fulfillment, and maybe, you know, I don't know. God has a funny way of humbling us, and so maybe that was
Mhm.
just part of the lesson that I needed to learn to be humbled, and that there is a
Mhm.
lot more important things in life than how many loans you close or
Mhm.
your dream house or your dream vacation houses or any of that stuff, right? So I think that's really been the biggest lesson for me, especially the last couple months that I've really started coming to grips with is just that you can take it all away, right? That stuff doesn't matter at the end of the day.
Mhm. It's funny you say that. Two things came to mind. The first one, as soon as you get the big numbers, you want more, and for no real reason. It's like because then I'll have blank because you already got those things. And I heard Jim Carrey I saw him on a YouTube little clip one time. And he said, "Oh, sure, I've got two Golden Globes, but I don't have three." And and he was saying it funny, but not,
Mm-hmm.
that he felt this like I'm not good enough yet. When I get three, then I'll have arrived,
Mm-hmm.
and knowing that it'll never end. And then the other thing, you talk about I look back at life and like you, I've been a lot of places and done a lot of things. But it's funny. I look back and the things that I recall with a big smile and just very fond memories is the skipping stones with my son. In my case, one of my favorite things to do is sit here on the front porch with the lovely Mrs. White. We have tea in the evenings,
Oh, I love it.
and we got a little fire pit. And my son and his wife, we sit around the fire pit, and
That's
it's
amazing.
not that trip to Estonia, which was awesome. Don't get me
Mm-hmm.
wrong, but I don't really recall which was Estonia and which was Paris and which was this and which was that. But I remember skipping stones out there at the city park here down the road. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not that we don't want to achieve greatness and do these great things, and which do provide, I guess, a sort of freedom of sorts. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just saying kind of the same thing you are. Make sure you're smelling the roses, because
Yeah, and I tell you, I got a lot of perspective. Actually, a team member here at Summit, one of our branch managers, she's involved in a nonprofit in Guatemala, and so
is
she
that
she does
Lacey?
yeah, Lacey, yeah, so she
I
does
just
research.
interviewed her on a podcast yesterday, by the
Okay,
way.
and Lacey's our top producer. Lacey's awesome. I've known Lacey for years. Like we were on core groups together, things like that. But yeah, so she invited me on the trip. They go once a year, and she invited me on the trip earlier this year. And I was like, yeah, I can't. It's my daughter's fall break, all these things like that. And anyway, somebody ended up had to bail, and so it was in October, and like a week before the trip, she's like, hey, somebody is not going. Do you sure you don't want to go? And I was like, you know what? The building's on fire, so I might as well go. But it was like that week of like being and seeing what actually people go through. That like, okay, it's still first world problems, even if you lose millions and millions and millions of dollars. and everybody screws you over. It's like it's still first world problems compared
Mhm.
to that. And so it was a powerful experience just seeing that.
Mhm.
And so like one thing that I love about Lacey and about Robin, in our company is that they want to be more successful so they can give more to things like that. And so I'm like, now that's something that I can get behind because I've done the get more and I see where it leads and it's not a good place, right? But it's like, that, yeah, if you want to be successful so you can give more. Don't do it so you can get
Mhm.
more because, yeah, it doesn't matter. I mean, how many dream homes that I've built or, dream vacation homes? I'm like, oh, now I'm gonna buy the next one. I'm gonna buy the next one. And every time it's like, that was it. I'm not that happy, right? I remember
Mhm.
I had a place in Colorado. I love to ski. Just came back with my kids I was in Whistler in Canada over New Year's. And I had this place in Colorado literally on my vision board for years. And I bought it 6 years ago. Very, very expensive, like, multiple seven figures. And I was just like, yeah, okay. I did not feel any happiness. I did not feel any whatever. It was just like, and I was like, man, that's to your point, right? Is like we achieve and we achieve. And it's like, it doesn't fill that hole. It doesn't fill, that
Mhm.
void. And so it's like,
Mhm.
that's been, I guess, the benefit of this
Mhm.
last year, especially is just learning more about that and figuring out. So I'm excited. I've still got a lot of life left in the mortgage industry. I've got, the second act's going to be better. So I'm looking
Yeah,
forward
I
to
I
it.
hear it. So if we had like a take home message here,
Mhm.
what is it?
I mean, the just be careful what you're valuing. And like, you
Mm,
have to value, community and you have to value connection. Like
mm,
that's way more important than commission. Like that it's so much more and it's way more important than achievement.
mhm,
Because achievement does not lead to fulfillment. So
mhm,
it just leads to you wanting to do more. So I mean, I think that's probably the big one. And then I mean, like I say, there's some other ones, but like keep the one thing, the one thing. Like if you have something, you build a business, a seven-figure business that allows you to have all this freedom and do all the things, make sure you at least keep your eye on that seven-figure business, right? So that way you
mhm,
can continue because it's like, yes, you can, the other things, all the ancillary businesses that came from it came because you built that business for years and years and years. You were disciplined in the same direction over and over and over. And so it's like you just got to stay disciplined. And that's really, doing the same right things for a long period of time, discipline in that same direction is what leads to great results. And so, I mean,
mhm,
it doesn't matter if it's health and fitness, doesn't matter if it's business, doesn't matter if it's relationships, right? It's like if you have good habits and you do them over and over and over, you're going to get great results. So, it's just make sure you keep that front of mind and don't let that slip away as soon as you get the one of my friends calls it the seduction of success.
mm. Do you know who Brendan Bouchard is by chance?
I do. Uh-huh.
So I know Brendan, very good friend, right? Just a
Okay.
real super nice guy. And he one of his famous sayings that I just absolutely love is I don't know if it's his, but he's the one I heard it from. He said, "The main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing."
Amen.
God Almighty, is that
It rings true all the time.
it
I'm
does.
exhibit A, B, and C, right? So
Yeah, and brother, so I've been doing this a long time, and I've done a lot of different things, and invest in this, invest in that. I played a distant second to your activities, your fireball of energy, but I did the best I could, and did a lot of different things, invested this, invested that, and now that the movie's played for a while, right now the movie's played for a while, that I have found. When I just focused on my mortgage business, kind of what you're saying, I focus on the mortgage business. And in my case, instead of investing in all these different properties and everything, because I did that too, and they did okay, right? They did okay, most of them. I'd have done better just putting the S&P 500. I'd have been way better off. Hey, let me share you one more little thing, man. So, dude,
sure.
I love your story. You just have such great energy,
Well,
and
thank you.
when you talked about this perseverance, I had no idea the depth that we are going to be talking here. So it's impressive. But I'm gonna share with you one little story here. So do you know who Joe Walsh is of the Eagles?
Oh yeah,
The
for
the
sure.
music group, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm a huge Joe Walsh fan. So uh, and I like his music, right? So, but I'm not so I'm a music fan of his, but I'm a Joe Walsh fan because of his story of what he came out of a horrible alcohol and drug addiction, barely survived it, and then life after that has just been awesome for him, and I just love his story. But he tells this thing He says, you know, you go through life and you have all these random chaotic events where it feels like everything's crashing each other and bashing each other and getting dented up and getting broken. It's just a cluster mess.
Hmm.
And you wonder, why does it have to be this way? He said, but the funny thing, when you let it play out, you find out it was a finely crafted novel that could be written no other way. And I thought about that, and and in his case, he was probably talking about his drug addiction, alcohol, the breaking up of the Eagles back when they broke up in the
Hmm.
what is it, 80s, I guess, or late 70s, whenever they broke up, and all the fighting and bickering, and then they rejoined and were more successful than ever,
For sure.
and have been now for 25 years, I guess. Something had they've been more successful the second act than the first act. And anyway, as you were sitting there talking, I just kept picturing Joe Walsh saying, you know, if you hang in there and you don't self-soothe, as you say, these things have a way of working themselves out. So good for you, man. Great story. Great inspiration story of hanging in there. And you know, what's that thing? I walked through hell. I just didn't stay there.
Absolutely.
And so good for you, man. So
Thank you. I appreciate that.
yeah, great story, man. Hey, thanks, Brandon.
Thank you so
Anything I can
much.
do for you today, man? Any
No, just keep getting the message out there to people. I mean, it's just, gotta let them know how important it is to keep their marketing going. So it's saved me so many times in my career. Like, and the message that you always put out there, right, with the mortgage marketing is just, do marketing. Like, you got to stay consistent with it. And so it's just
mhm.
like it's saved me so many times, like helping us be able to continue doing business because we stuck to our marketing.
Yeah, good for you, man. Awesome. Thank you, Brandon. Appreciate you, brother.
Thank you, Carl.